Where do I start with Gabe Kidd and speaking about everything that is known over the past couple of weeks during the Best of the Super Juniors tour and seeing what Gabe Kidd has created? Because it comes up on my timeline at Marie_Shadows over on Twitter if you're not already following. And yeah, where do I start with all of this? First of all, I think the episode should be called Kayfabe and Delusions or Living in a Kayfabe Bubble. And for the majority of my work, I do talk about wrestling in a kayfabe sense where characters rule the wrestling world. Angles and stories and breaking down the characters, giving you guys inside knowledge and just a different perspective of certain wrestlers that we talk about. However, I do understand that there are characters played in wrestling that are meant to blur the lines between reality and kayfabe, which is basically what's not real, what's story, what's being played out where I can suspend my disbelief and enjoy it and get the entertainment aspect of it, the kayfabe aspect of it, rather than it being real life and all in your face kind of deal. And for the majority of my content, I do go along with the kayfabe storyline. I do end up saying, hey guys, let's suspend your disbelief as much as I am suspending my disbelief, and let's talk about this amazing storyline that is currently happening in New Japan Pro Wrestling or happening in WWE, not so much AEW any longer. And so let's talk about the story and let's have some fun analyzing the story. With Gabe Kidd and everything that he's been doing, I have no idea where this is going. And when you don't know where a story is going, that doesn't mean to tell me everything. That doesn't mean to hold my hand as we go through this journey of this story that I'm supposed to enjoy. No, at least let me in on a decent amount of information, a decent amount of progressing in the story that you want to tell, rather than it just being like, I'm just gonna drop this here and you're gonna have to go along for the ride, and it might frustrate you, but we don't care. We're just gonna drop this story beat right here and not make it make sense until sometime later, and then it's like it still doesn't make sense. So here is the whole entire timeline for what I remember, because I did take a break off to help with important family stuff behind the scenes. And so this is what I remember, and this is what I put in my Discord. By the way, you are listening to a brand new episode of the Square Circle podcast by yours truly, Marie Shadows. Now, let's jump into this little mini timeline for what I can remember. So, as you guys know, the Bullet Club War Dogs, which is consisted of Gabe Kidd, David Finley, Clark Connors, and Drilla Maloney. And we have like honorable mentions like Jake Lee. We once had Sonata, but Sonata betrayed them. And then we have Robbie X, also part of Bullet Club War Dogs. And I think Taichi Ishimori got turned into a Bullet Club War Dog in a way. But the core members that we need to focus on for this episode is Finley, Clark, Drilla Maloney, and Gabe Kidd. And by the way, I have no personal issues with these men. I love all these men. These men have fantastic storytelling ability. These men have fantastic wrestling ability. They are all over. And the Japanese fans and even the American fans love them just as much. And I really just don't like when things sort of don't make sense and there's no consistency, because you do have to treat professional wrestling as like a consistent soap opera of your character and what kind of story you want to tell for your character and what kind of obstacles your character is going to face. So in my mind, the way that I look at professional wrestling, I look at it as if you are doing all of this hard work to eventually show it as a portfolio so that way you can get on national television, whether that is unfortunately and sadly AEW, because you'll just be another number, you'll just be another toy in the sandbox, Or you go to TNA, which even though it's not really seen on cable like that or on TV like that, you could still find it, but it's not like as mainstream, if that makes sense. But people could find you on YouTube, on their YouTube channel. You could get a channel subscription to TNA and watch it there, or they can finally go to either like NXT or the main roster or WWE. They could go to MLW. There are a lot of options out there, and I look at the way that a wrestler should shape their career, which, by the way, this is just me thinking, not necessarily you having to do it. And this isn't gospel, but this is just an idea for you to get TV ready and like be part of a team. You know what I mean? Instead of like just trying to do whatever works and throw stuff at the wall and think you know everything. And it's like you might need some people to brainstorm with you of how to make your wrestling career pop and what you can take and what kind of risk you can do and not risk. And I know I'm going off on a tangent, but again, I just look at it as how you shape your career can get you in front of the eyes that you need to take you to the next level and sign you to a lucrative deal to the bigger major companies that are on TV, and you get to have a bigger platform and get to do a lot more different things because they have a lot more different opportunities and doors open for you if you're want to go that way. If not, you can always continue to do it on your own, which there's nothing wrong with that. The point is that we are all creatives at the end of the day. We all have some type of creative heart thought process and even like our passion and stuff like that. So we're all creative at the end of the day. Not everyone is creative, which is totally okay. But for the majority of us that do podcasting, that do artwork, that do professional wrestling, we are creative in some way, shape, or form. And that creativity needs a little bit of nurturing. And as I say this, we all want to put stuff out onto the internet. It will be vastly looked at and vastly critiqued. And you don't have to listen to every single voice that is out there. You can listen to people that make sense to you, but also do not live in the bubble that you want to live in and think that you'll get to the big top by just believing in what you've always believed and never challenged any of your beliefs and never challenge any of your thoughts and your convictions. That's how somebody grows, when they start questioning like, hey, is this the perfect route? Or why am I not taking enough risk? Why am I not emailing enough? Why am I not doing this, not doing that? Now, I understand that everyone's situation is different. Everyone has different goals. Everyone has different, every single little thing is different. I understand that. But fundamentally, we should definitely be trying to grow to be better artists in a never changing and never stopping and a never slowing down world, such as professional wrestling. So when I see things that are just way too out of line and there's no consistency and there's just weird shit happening and it's not making sense from a week to week standpoint, because again, I'm following you along on this journey because it is a soap opera for me to watch. You are putting this character on display on a weekly setting. If you're going to be taking bookings from like AEW or TNA or MLW or just indie bookings, and you have like a week to week sort of basis going on, a story going on. And so I consider that for me to be a soap opera where I'm following your career. I'm looking at what you're doing, the matches that you're putting on, the promos that you're making. So it's a soap opera for me, entertainment wise, for me following you. And all I ask is for consistency. And the character should be consistent. The character should have their morals already planned out. Not a lot of morals, but like some stuff to hold on to, some stuff that could be like non-negotiable, and then other stuff can be very negotiable. There should be a very clear motivation of like what your character does and the psychology of your character and all this kind of stuff that should be shown through the ability of facing all of these different challengers or staying put in one company and then showing it on a larger scale, because it is kind of hard to follow from promotion to promotion to promotion if I and other people do not have a subscription to all those networks out there that are hindering the modern wrestler and the indies, which it really does hinder people. It really does. And you want to get your content out there as much as possible. That's why sometimes going the route of creating your own YouTube channel and putting stuff up there is very beneficial for wrestlers, and using social media to their platform, even though we have trolls and all of that. But the point I'm trying to get at is that I just look for consistency. So in the wake of this whole entire podcast being about Gabe Kidd, again, nothing personal to Gabe. I love Gabe. I enjoy his work. I just don't understand him jumping from New Japan Pro Wrestling to AEW when he was giving speeches and promos about FAEW, F this, I'm number one in Japan, and I'm going to carry Japan, and Japan this, Japan is my home, and Tony Khan is a money mark, and all this kind of stuff, right? All of this stuff. And yeah, I believed all this stuff because it's the same exact thing of what I've been saying ever since AEW got the partnership with New Japan Pro Wrestling. You guys could go back into my back catalog. And not only that, the other wrestlers in New Japan Pro Wrestling were saying the same thing too. So if more people are saying the same thing and they're getting frustrated and there's not enough respect, such as Yota Tsuji saying that he's not going to be performing or wanting to be booked on a New Japan Strong pay-per-view for the States because they don't show the pay-per-view and New Japan Pro Wrestling enough respect, then that's speaking volumes. Again, but New Japan is not listening. Tanahashi is the president of New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's not listening. And I could definitely see that the product is definitely taking a hit. If you tell me otherwise in the comments below, it better have a very good reason for why you disagree with the product of New Japan Pro Wrestling taking a hit. So back to the timeline here. Bullet Club War Dogs just came out of a very successful dog pound cage match against House of Torture, which I reviewed that and I made it into a reaction video, so you guys could go watch that on youtube.com/Square Circle Podcast. And that link to that video will be down in the description below and also in the comment section as well. So they just came off of a successful win over House of Torture. House of Torture is no longer with Bullet Club, not under the banner. But again, you guys waited 5 years to hear our complaint about this. And then finally we get it where they separate. But you just created brand new merchandise for House of Torture and a brand new entrance theme song for House of Torture, and they end up losing and having to go away from Bullet Club, and it's like, that doesn't make any sense. But oh well, it's New Japan Pro Wrestling. And so as Bullet Club is coming off of this successful win, their next challenge is to go over to New Japan Strong, the pay-per-view resurgence, and fight against the Young Bucks and the returning Good Brothers, which, by the way, I am not taking any of these guys seriously. And if you want to know, the Young Bucks finally blocked me after so many years, but it's okay because, again, New Japan Pro Wrestling does not need the Young Bucks. New Japan Pro Wrestling does not need the Good Brothers. New Japan Pro Wrestling does not need Kenny Omega. They don't need anyone from the past to continue to try and stay relevant and also try to bring back the past for New Japan Pro Wrestling. It doesn't make any sense. It's not going to bring up any fresh matchups. The only way that we get fresh matchups is when the Young Bucks drops all of their choreographed spot fest matches where you know exactly the timing that they might end up doing, like an Indie Taker, or the exact timing that they might do the Super Kick Party or something like that. Those have to be dropped and they have to adapt to modern wrestling, something different, something fresh, something new, but they don't know how to do it and they want to cling to relevancy. This is what I was saying for the lead up to them facing Bullet Club. Bullet Club right now, Bullet Club War Dogs, I should be more specific, is on a hot streak. They are so over that sometimes the Young Bucks just want to get that relevancy back. And it's like, guys, Stop. But the problem is that the Young Bucks got the win over Bullet Club, and then the Young Bucks are trying to do the Too Sweet. We moved past the Too Sweet. We're not doing the Too Sweet anymore the same way that the Too Sweet was always done. We're doing it with the backhand now for the Too Sweet when it comes to Bullet Club War Dogs. And it looked like in solidarity that Bullet Club War Dogs were going to be for themselves and be like, F you guys, we're not part of this. And then we get Gabe Kidd over here to join up with the Young Bucks and Jon Moxley and have his arm wrapped around Jon Moxley on an AEW Dynamite show. And it's like, what are we doing? You just, at the last event for New Japan Strong, was like, no, I'm in solidarity with my brothers of Bullet Club War Dogs. Turn around, you're siding with Moxley. That doesn't make any sense. What did I miss? What are you not telling me? And then when I saw the interview today that had Gabriel Kidd explain and hype up his match with Yota Tsuji, he said that come the press conference that New Japan Pro Wrestling is going to have, he will explain to the world why he joined with Jon Moxley. But again, why are we waiting that long for you to tell us the reason for that join up? Because if you're going to join up with Jon Moxley, have your arm around him, have a couple of social media posts on Instagram with a caption that says abandon all hope, and then also appear in Jon Moxley's really bad promo, it's like you should have said something during that promo a little bit, because I'm going to take it as like, are you betraying Bullet Club War Dogs at this point in time? To me, that would have been a very blatant, yo, I think we have a traitor among us. Because if you're not going to be telling the guys like, hey, I have this opportunity and I'm going to go take it and it's joining Moxie because it's going to benefit us, Bullet Club War Dogs, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. But obviously the story wouldn't be that plain obvious. Like, but then again, this is AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. They do things very obvious in front of our faces and I call it out and I talk about it in real time. But from a storyteller standpoint, that's not going to happen. Like, they wouldn't necessarily do that. They shouldn't do that. But at least in that promo right after Jon Moxley was just saying a bunch of gibberish, because again, Jon Moxley does not know how to show. He likes to tell. And in the world of storytelling, it is more showing than telling the audience what you want them to know. And Jon Moxley still doesn't make any sense. Like, of course, we know that professional wrestlers are in it for themselves. Most times it's about getting a paycheck and going home and doing what is asked of them, and that's it. Most of the time it is a helpful event. It is a team effort. It's always going to be a team effort, but you know that sometimes wrestlers are going to be like, yo, let me get my paycheck and let me go home. And sometimes wrestlers will use certain things to their advantage and get more money and all this kind of stuff. And I can understand having a storyline where Jon Mox is like, you guys never help out. All you guys want is a paycheck and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff, but you don't understand what it's like. But the thing is that he keeps telling us all of this. He doesn't show us. And when he does, air quote, show us, it doesn't make sense either way because he's not very creative. He does need someone to guide him to make sure that this hits on all cylinders. It really doesn't. So after that promo, Gabe should have said something about why he joined up with them, or allude to something so that way we can come together in kayfabe to sort of speculate what's happening and put two and two together and try to connect the dots, but that didn't happen. So again, why are we waiting so long until the press conference to get some more information out of this? By that time, you're going to lose interest into the fans that want to come back to AEW or maybe come back to AEW to watch. You're going to lose interest because they're not going to care. It's too far of a wait time for it. And some people might jump into the comments and say, oh, well, you got to be patient. If you're patient for WWE stuff, you know, you should be patient for AEW stuff. And it's like, it's not the same, because at least with WWE, they give you breadcrumbs to be like, okay, I'm a little interested, you know, you still have my attention. Why did this person join up with this person when it doesn't make sense? And then eventually they give us the full story over the course of the weeks. But over in AEW, it's like, we're going to start something. I'm going to tell you a story, or I'm just going to just drop this story beat here, and then they pick it up like a month later, or they pick it up like 2 weeks later. And it's like, what are we doing, guys? Like, this is not how you tell a story. This isn't it. If you don't know where the story is going, then you got to sit down and like write it out. This is why you need actual writers who have a creative writing degree. I am Marie Shadows. I have a creative writing degree. I legit have one. And when you plan out a story, you should know the beginning and you should know the ending. And then in the middle, you'll work out all the things you need to do to get to that ending. And that's how you will create a really good story. Are all stories gonna be flawless? No, that's not what we're asking for. We're just asking for, like, hey, give us a nice hook for this story. And I'm not talking about the wrestler, which I hope that he's doing well, but give us a nice hook for this story that you want to create, and then take me on this journey. And I will be with you if you hook me, rather than being like, abandon all hope. Okay, Gabe, what does that mean? What hope am I abandoning? Because right now it doesn't seem like nobody is on the same page in AEW with this storyline of that Moxley needs to take over AEW and needs to shake up everybody and tell everybody, hey, you can no longer be selfish because you don't know what it's like to be at the top of the hill, and all this kind of bullshit that he spews, but it doesn't reflect in the storytelling ability that these wrestlers should have. Right now, AEW is dealing with a Ricochet problem, and then they have the Hurt Syndicate. I was about to say the Hurt Business. We have all of these mixed match stories that are probably not going to have the same end goal as whatever the hell Jon Moxley's end goal is with his stable and all of that. So I don't understand why we need to abandon hope. Who exactly is going to abandon hope? Is it the fans that are going to abandon the hope, or is it the wrestlers in the locker room that bicker and fight online and that also form cliques in the back and all this stuff that the dirt sheets have created, this narrative about the AEW locker room? Is it the wrestlers that have to abandon all hope? Is it the wrestlers that are sitting at home like a Deonna Purrazzo or a Camille or any other wrestler, like Lance Hoyt is also sitting at home? Private Party, who's sitting at home. Are these wrestlers the wrestlers that are sitting at home collecting a paycheck from Tony Khan? Are they going to be abandoning hope? So this is why I have so many questions. This is why I'm like, there's so much inconsistency. And joining a company that revels in inconsistency and do whatever they want, and they think that it's hot shit when it's not. It's going down. They think that by introducing this, it's going to jumpstart interest, when I have a lot of questions. And if I have a lot of questions about my entertainment that I want to enjoy one day, I'm not going to be returning back. The only reason why I'm talking about this is because it's a Gabe Kidd segment, even though there's other stuff in AEW that I want to talk about. But aside from the abandon all hope question, there is also the siding with Jon Moxley and helping out the Young Bucks when he stood in solidarity with his brothers, the War Dogs, to be like, nah, we're doing our own thing. And then to sort of make it feel and look like Gabe Kidd was going to be part of the Anarchy in the Arena match, which I hope I have it right. And that wasn't the case, but he ended up helping them, I believe. I might be wrong on that. But if I am wrong, just be respectful in the comments. But why would you hype up something, make it seem so predictable, and then not include him into the match? And then include the women into the Anarchy of the Arena match, which sort of on a storytelling surface level, it makes sense. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, did they need to be there? Did they really, really need to be there? Other than that, I did say on the timeline that it feels like Gabe Kidd is just taking a paycheck. And you can see the ones who just want to take a paycheck. Even though he says that he's passionate and he loves this and this is all that he knows and all that kind of stuff, I get that. I'm the same way too. I love professional wrestling. This is everything to me. It is life. I totally understand that. But in order for your character to thrive and be on the good side with fans, even though you cannot please them all, but from a character standpoint, even though you're a madman and you'll take whatever it is, AEW just waters you down. AEW just waters down Gabe Kidd. Gabe Kidd is way more better presented in New Japan Pro Wrestling when he's able to do what he needs to do. If he's going to be a consistent on AEW and be part of, Jon Moxley's crew or whatever the hell he's going to tell us during the press conference, it's going to be a watered down version of the madman Gabe Kidd. The reason why I like the character now of him being a madman is because he shifted a little bit and he finally got it. And I'm 100% behind Gabe Kidd. Through all of his mental struggles that I've seen and I read and we all saw on social media and the breakdowns and stuff, I am 100% behind Gabe Kidd. However, you do have to be consistent in what you say and what you do. You can't necessarily be like, New Japan, this is my home, and Japan is number one, and New Japan is number one, and all this kind of stuff, and then go out and do some other stuff where it's like, dude, you just said that New Japan is number one and I'm believing you. And at this point, he could have taken the time off. He could have went home, reflected, started training, started coming up with more ideas, started coming up with more story ideas. Call up Suji, even though in Kayfabe they don't like each other, but call up Suji and be like, bro, how do you want to handle this? We have a match coming up. What are you doing? What are you doing this? Just check in with people so that way when it comes time to build this story of Gabe Kidd versus Suji, again, it's something new, it's something fresh. And this is what I want to say about the interview that I saw. That's the Gabe Kidd that I want. That's the Gabe Kidd that makes me believe in this character of the madman, that he just shuts everybody else out, meaning that don't ask him about the departures of New Japan Pro Wrestling. He doesn't care about that. If somebody wants to leave, they can leave, because he's all about proving that he can carry the company on his back. He's all about proving that he is the one that they should be investing in, and they really should be investing in him. And he just says what he thinks, and he doesn't care about anything else except Suji is going to lose and he's going to become the champion. And then he did talk a little bit about the press conference that he'll tell us all what he's going to be doing with Jon Moxley and AEW. But he reminded us why he's good at what he does. And he sort of brought me back to this is the Gabe Kidd that I want, even though I said I was disappointed in him. And the only reason why I was disappointed in him is that I get it. It's professional wrestling. And the action that he did to Willow, even though Willow did not sell it, Willow did not get upset, and there was no spit thrown. The act of spitting on another person, I just do not like. I don't like that. That's grounds for I'm going to punch you in the face, because it is very disrespectful. And I get that Gabe Kidd is a heel, but Gabe Kidd has done other things that are heel worthy. He did not need to really spit on people, even though sometimes in New Japan Pro Wrestling, we have this spitting habit now where two guys spit on each other in the form of rage, nothing else. So get your mind out of the gutter. But I just don't like that. But at least with men, I know that someone's going to get cracked in the jaw. I wish that Willow would have went through the ropes and punched Gabe Kidd in the jaw for spitting on her, because the action, like I said, is very disrespectful. So aside from that disappointment, seeing his interview that talked about him facing Suji at Dominion at Osaka-jo Hall on June 15th brought me back to why I support and enjoy Gabe Kidd's work. However, I just don't like when he aligns himself with AEW because I just know that AEW does not have his best interests, and Gabe Kidd cannot be Gabe Kidd, the madman over there in AEW. And to the interviews that Gabe Kidd has, as much as I would like to talk to Gabe Kidd about his wrestling career and some off topics and whatever he's listening to music wise and all this kind of stuff and diving deep into certain topics, I just don't understand why no other interviewers will push him back on certain things. And it's like, what's the point of an interview if you're going to play it safe? What new perspectives can you give to your audience if all you're going to do is play it safe with someone that calls himself a madman? And during that interview, he said that everybody wants to know what he's thinking. Everybody wants to know what's in his mind. Well, I do. I definitely want to know what's on your mind. And I definitely want to know if I can push back on certain ideas. There's certain things that he said during the interview that I would have pushed back because it just didn't make any sense. So like when he joins up with Moxley and we're talking about Bullet Club War Dogs, I would definitely be the one to be like, hey, does that mean that you're betraying Bullet Club War Dogs? Like, what's going on here? It might be a lot more smoother than that, a lot more different, but essentially that will be the question, because it felt like, yo, are you leaving them to go with Moxley? Like, I need to see a benefit here. If I don't see a benefit, I'm going to be like, hey, why are you jumping ship, man? And we see it all the time. Someone else on the timeline had mentioned that this is the formula for when people jump ship. They end up talking a lot of shit about AEW, get one good match out of an AEW wrestler, and then end up going to AEW like as a favor of like, hey, we like this kid. And then the more times that they go, the less you see them at their main show, their main promotion, and then eventually they sign for all the money that they could ever want. But again, money eventually runs out. AEW is going to find out the hard way. And of course, you know, on the timeline, there was talk about how Bushiroad has a lot of money and that Bushiroad is not really investing in New Japan Pro Wrestling and all this money problems. And everyone loves to say, oh, well, you know, the yen is down and this is down and that's down. And I keep saying that money rises and falls. You can't put all your eggs in one basket and keep saying that the yen is down when today, which is Sunday, June 8th, 2025, I could check the stock market. I could check where the money is at and it could tell me that it's down. Which, by the way, because this is audio, I'm not checking. I'm just giving an example. The example basically is if I check today, it might be down. If I check tomorrow, the money might go up. So I'm just saying that you guys can't use that as a crutch because money rises and falls when it is whatever the day and however it's feeling and whatever people are trading whenever it comes to stocks. That's why I never use that in any of my arguments to be like, oh, but the yen is down. You're totally wrong. The yen is down. The yen is this. The yen is that. And it's like, if you were living in Japan, you might have a different outlook because you're using Japanese money. So it'll feel different. The same way that like if a Japanese person comes over to America and uses American money, they're not going to fully understand it. They might feel like the US dollar might not be as worth it. And then maybe on other days, they might feel that it is worth it. So there's a lot of different perspectives around this. And I'm just saying that don't always be like, oh, the yen is down when money rises and falls. Until we get actual like stats and data just to go off on, but not to like fully be like, this is gospel, then we can have a conversation about it. But again, for everyone that uses that as an argument, please stop using that as an argument. Aside from the Gabe Kidd issue, because Gabe Kidd is going to tell us in the press conference on before June 15th, well, June 15th should be the press conference and then the 16th should be Dominion. Aside from the Gabe Kidd thing, I do want to mention that the New Japan fans that I see on Twitter that I guess I'm no longer welcome in the community. I have no idea. But it just seems to me that there is a lot of delusions out there. And it's like, for this specific situation, we need to be realistic. We can't just be like, hey, let me explain to you Gabe Kidd's character. Gabe Kidd is a madman. Gabe Kidd does whatever the fuck he wants. He says whatever the fuck he wants. He does show up wherever he wants. So he is consistent in that avenue, but I just don't like that he gets watered down. However, we can tell in his promos when they are genuine and then just a regular promo that he has to get out. But I do think we have to stop living in this delusion and kayfabe that everything is okay with New Japan Pro Wrestling and that everything is okay with AEW. And also to realize that your favorite is not always going to win. And that also, when one wrestler leaves New Japan Pro Wrestling to go over to WWE, aka Jeff Cobb, the reason why Jeff Cobb is in a team with Solo is because nobody in WWE knows who Jeff Cobb is. And this isn't a personal attack to Jeff Cobb or anything like that. Like, I love Jeff Cobb. I support that guy. He's really, really good. And I do believe that Jeff Cobb will find his footing no matter where he goes. But right now, him being a bodyguard is not that big of a deal because you want the crowd to get used to him. If Jeff Cobb came into the main roster and was like, John Cena, I challenge you, are you going to be like, yeah? Or are you going to be like, what? Who are you? You know, it's the same thing of like, if Jeff Cobb came in and went up to Jey Uso and was like, you don't deserve to be world champion. And it's like, but you just came in the door. Sometimes that works. Sometimes that doesn't. If we look at Santino Marella, his debut was very ingenious and very fun, and I enjoyed his debut. But to do that to Jeff Cobb, to just give him a singles push and put him right into the main spotlight because he has personality and humor and he's a really good wrestler, which he is. He has all three of those. Those are great. However, you don't do that to a WWE audience that doesn't have a New Japan Pro Wrestling subscription. There are people out there that just don't understand that there's a different type of business model and a different type of getting the consumer to enjoy the wrestler that they're putting in the spotlight, which is a very big deal of a spotlight. You're with Solo, you're with the Usos, you're with Jacob Fatu, you're with Tama Tonga, you're with the Polynesians of professional wrestling. So Jeff Cobb is in great hands. Jeff Cobb is having matches where he's winning, he's building up, and he's having a little bit of a headbutting situation with Jacob Fatu because Jacob is like, yo, Solo, you didn't run that game plan by me. So it's sort of like a slow build. You don't bring somebody from New Japan Pro Wrestling to stick them right into the main event without having some type of build up, some type of story, some type of like, hey, this is his WWE history. Therefore, this is why now, some months later or even a year later, he's going after the next world champion or the next WWE champion. You don't just throw them in there so that way they can just float into non-existence. You can love all of these characters all you want and give them all the praise that you want, but also live in reality too and think a little bit bigger and think about business and how it's going to be perceived. Just because we know who Jeff Cobb is and everything that he's done and everything that he's built, especially in the United Empire, especially as a tag team wrestler, especially as a big guy, especially as a singles competitor. We know his history. And even being on Lucha Underground too, we know his history, but most people in the WWE universe did not venture out to watch other things because they also have a life. So they might have missed the days of Lucha Underground. They might have missed the days of New Japan Pro Wrestling. They might have missed the days of wherever else Jeff Cobb is or was during his indie days before settling down to like New Japan Pro Wrestling and stuff. So you have to introduce the audience to Jeff Cobb a different way. And by the way, JC Mateo just does not roll off the tongue. So it is Jeff Cobb until like my brain clicks and is JC Mateo. But I just wanted to bring that to light because the delusion is at an all-time high. And it's like sometimes you can live in delusion, but it's best to live in reality and understand why things are the way they are. And that this is what business is. Also, Also, if you think that New Japan Pro Wrestling will not jump at the idea of signing a contract for a partnership with WWE, you are sadly mistaken. Sometimes it's great to be a fan, but you also have to live in reality that right now, this AEW New Japan partnership is not the best partnership ever. It is sucking the life out of New Japan Pro Wrestling. AEW doesn't care. Bushiroad doesn't care. New Japan Pro Wrestling is drowning while Pro Wrestling Noah is basically succeeding. But if WWE ever came to them with a partnership deal on the table, they are going to sign it. Don't think for 1 second that it's not going to happen, because even Tanahashi could see the writing on the wall, even if he's not going to admit it. And the stuff that's happening, people that are jumping ship, people that are going this way, that way, because of the mistreatment and stuff like that. And, you know, Tanahashi always wants a bigger platform, a more spectacle. That's why it feels like the Tokyo Dome is like a really good spectacle of a pay-per-view that should be their WrestleMania always and always and always. And even Tanahashi said it himself during the interview that he is jealous of the way that WWE produces their WWE wrestlers into superstars, and they are ready for TV. The only way for New Japan Pro Wrestling to succeed is to stop getting in their own way and to stop with the multiple traditions that should be lifted and sort of adapted is not the right word, but sort of evolve into some modern ideas of what we do here for American television. It should just be slightly adjusted so that way you can have the stars in New Japan Pro Wrestling that can feel like it's a WWE sort of journey in a way. So even Tanahashi admitted that he's jealous of WWE doing that with their stars. So what makes you think that he wouldn't sign a partnership deal with WWE? And even if they did ever do a partnership with WWE, that means that AEW is out, because AEW again is sucking everything from New Japan Pro Wrestling and not giving a shit about what they're doing and the damage that is causing New Japan Pro Wrestling. I just wanted to put that thought out there because I did see somewhere online that New Japan would never take a WWE partnership, and it's like, look at Pro Wrestling Noah. Look how much we loved the one guy that it's on Excursion, Imora. I'm so sorry if I get his name wrong. We love him. He came back, and Marufuji is like, yeah, you could go back. You could go back to WWE. And that's only helping Pro Wrestling Noah. So a partnership that will somehow happen between New Japan Pro Wrestling and WWE will be very, very beneficial for both of those guys. Now, I also do want to mention that Thekla has showed up in AEW, and I'm just disappointed because I know that her work and her work ethic and her storytelling ability will be greater for WWE and that platform, and it would have been showcased way better, and the vignettes would have been way better. She would have felt like a super huge big deal. In AEW, you don't feel like a big deal. You don't feel like anything. So I'm just a little disappointed, but it is Thekla's decision. I totally get it. The last thing that I want to touch on is the Kyle Fletcher and Adam Cole spot. I did mention that in the last podcast episode. However, I do want to say that people on the internet need to stop thinking that they are very well versed in the wrestling aspect of it, like taking the moves, taking the bumps, how this should be, how that should be. You should be listening to the experts and people who still work in the business, who have a firsthand knowledge about certain moves and bumps and how things happen. If you do not do any of those things, if you're not working in the business, please stop, because it does not matter if Adam Cole did not hit his head. It does not matter if someone decides to want to be a smartass to slow down the video just so we could see frame by frame by frame that Adam Cole decided to put his arm out. Well, did you know that he could have popped out his elbow? Did you know he could have fractured his elbow, fractured his shoulder, and then he's out again? And he's going to have surgery, and you're not going to care because you, the faceless account that decided to slow down the video, doesn't give a shit about wrestlers, don't give a shit about the industry. And those are the type of accounts that promotions should not cater to and should definitely not entertain the idea that they'll become a fan of your promotion. They don't give a shit about the wrestler. They don't give a shit about the promotion. They give a shit about wanting to have a negative effect on the timeline because negativity is a currency in online nowadays, especially on Twitter. If you're extremely negative in the true sense of being negative, you get a currency which basically allows you to be viral. And if you do get a blue check mark, and if you do end up getting some money from Twitter, which it is a business essentially, but you know, if you become like really negative in the true sense of negativity, then you can definitely bank on that currency and your tweet will go viral. People will continue to spread it around, and then it gets on other people's feeds. And that is how Twitter, and that's how the algorithm stays alive. Negativity breeds currency, and also the influence also breeds currency. And even emotional swapping now breeds currency, because as we see with this whole scrambling of like, was it a work? Is it not a work? With the whole R-Truth situation and coming back to Money in the Bank, like everyone is switching to different emotions and doing all this, doing all the gymnastics and stuff like that. Like everything that we see online can be a tribute to some type of currency that somebody wants to get, because it's always about like attention. Now, back to the whole Kyle Fletcher and Adam Cole thing. Again, Adam Cole could have got seriously hurt. If he was 1 second off, he could have been paralyzed. He could have had a broken neck, a fractured neck, a broken shoulder. Something could have went wrong. The fact that Kyle Fletcher does these moves, no matter how safe he thinks it is, perception is key, especially on television, national television. AEW has a television contract. People can see it. We also see it on Twitter. And so as a collective, it is going to look like a really, really bad spot. And I call out Kyle Fletcher for the moves that look really bad. He dropped Ishii on his head. Ishii should not be taking a power driver because gravity is not kind to thick ass people. Like, gravity, man. Some wrestlers just don't understand gravity. But there are just certain things that Kyle does that thinks that it's really good. And it's like, no, dude, you can have a really great career trying to be someone that you are rather than someone that you're not. I almost messed up the phrase, but you guys understand what I'm coming from with this. And so, yeah, Kyle Fletcher versus Adam Cole, no matter what, you got to look at the big picture of like, that was dangerous no matter what it was. Every time that the buckle bomb is done or the power bomb onto the apron, it's always done safe. At least the guy is like halfway up where the guy can land on his shoulder blades or his back. You know, you still won't be able to take it perfectly, meaning the bump. It's always going to hurt, but at least you know that you're going to be safe and it's not your neck hitting. It's not your arm hitting with possibility of being paralyzed. Like, all I want is for Kyle Fletcher to just do regular moves because he has another person's life in his hands, rather than trying to be like, oh my God, look at this, and it's only going to be talked about for 15 minutes and in a negative way. Not even like, oh my God, that was so cool, you should do it again. But in a negative way, it's going to be talked about for 15 minutes, passed around on the Twitter timeline. And at this point, AEW cannot have any more bad press. But at this point, they don't really care what kind of press they get. Press is press to them, and you know, that's their currency right there. If they could get anybody talking, they think that they're going to get new fans. They're not going to get new fans. And so please don't do that spot again of just throwing Adam Cole there. It doesn't matter if Adam Cole agreed to it, if Adam Cole knows how to take it. No, this guy has had concussions in the past. This guy broke his foot to the point where we weren't sure if he was coming back. And yet then you want to do something like that where he could have been paralyzed. It could have been a lot worse because of recklessness. It looks so reckless that is the perception that you're giving off when you're not supposed to do that. You're really not. There's a huge difference between being a professional wrestler and a wrestler. It is professional for a reason. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I do hope that Gabe Kidd gives us something substantial during the press conference as to why he aligned with Jon Moxley. Again, we do not need the Young Bucks or the Good Brothers or Kenny Omega or Jon Moxley back in New Japan Pro Wrestling, because that is not going to elevate any of those guys there. It really isn't. We just wrapped up Best of the Super Juniors. Congratulations to Kosei Fujita for winning the Best of the Super Juniors. This year, I did not talk about Best of the Super Juniors at all. New Japan right now is a little frustrating to watch. And that's not because I'm fantasy booking and I want my fantasy booking to come true. I just want things to be consistent, stuff to make sense. By the way, Clark Connors should be our IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion. When you have El Desperado and Hiromu in the same junior division for years and years and years, and there is no way of getting them to do something different or moving them on to heavyweight, then the junior division is going to suffer because they are going to be the pillars. And I understand that. I love those two guys. They should be the pillars. They should be the guys like the final boss to take out and win big prizes. But it's really stifling the division when the division needs a little tender loving care and a little growth in it. I also do not believe in champions being in tournaments, and I do not believe in champions winning tournaments while they still hold a championship title belt. To me, that doesn't really create story. That really doesn't truly create something different, something new. Yeah, it could be seen as, oh, look how tough your champion is that is representing the division of that championship title, but you're not elevating the guys that are in that division because you're too busy focusing on trying to win a tournament rather than trying to build up the division that you hold that title for. There's just a difference, and I just don't like it. I just don't see it. And so Kosei Fujita won. Kosei Fujita is going to get his title match soon, I believe, maybe at Dominion or maybe a little after Dominion, because the first match that's coming up, I guess, for Dominion would be El Desperado taking on the deathmatch wrestler from another organization that I can't remember his name, and I do not want to basically mess up the name out of respect, but you guys should definitely know. If you guys want to put his name down in the comments below, do so. And so, yeah, New Japan is a little bit frustrating. I do not know if I'm going to be reviewing the G1. I do have some other goals and accomplishments in mind for what I want to do for my brand and upgrading my brand, elevating it too. And so you guys would just have to stay tuned for that journey and that ride. If you want more information on what I'm going to be doing and pivoting a little bit and making different types of content and all that kind of stuff, make sure you are signed up for free at marieshadows.substack.com. And if you want to, you can follow the Instagram account at YourFave Marie Shadows, which is URFAV Marie Shadows. And if you want to support this podcast, by all means, hit that follow button on Spotify, which is basically Square Circle Podcast on all podcasting platforms, and youtube.com/Square Circle Podcast. And then there is a link to the Fourth Wall membership site and also merchandise. Merchandise is on sale this month for June for Father's Day. So get some merch, support the brand, support me, support these episodes. And then there is the one link where it has all of my links, the campsite.bio/Marie Shadows. You can find me on Twitter at Marie_Shadows. You can email me if you want to, squarecirclepodcast@outlook.com. I'm not that really hard to find, and I just have wrestling opinions. I just really hope that this unfolding story that's taking so long, that Gabe Kidd has joined up with Moxley and maybe the Young Bucks, can be interesting. I hope it is interesting, but I will forever give you guys my opinions on professional wrestling and stuff like that. Again, to stay updated, all the links are down below. Leave your comments. I do answer each and every single comment, and I do acknowledge you at all times. I really do. And I really hope to see you guys in chat. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to a brand new episode of the Square Circle Podcast. I am your host, Marie Shadows, and I'll see you guys on the next one.